fight for pole in Austin was quite interesting. Max Verstappen versus Charles Leclerc versus Lando Norris and versus Lewis Hamilton. 4 representatives of 4 teams. Lando Norris got in the mix just in the very last attempt, and Charles Leclerc managed to come out on top. And let's take a closer look in this fight. We will compare P1 Charles Leclerc to P2 Lando Norris. Shots are synchronized, and let's move on towards the first corner. The first corner on this track is very interesting and unique. Uphill in the beginning, then it has a sort of a plateau in the middle of the corner, and then it goes downhill. Also from this camera it looks like it is a sort of a 90-degree corner, but actually it has a way bigger angle. And with Lando Norris starts decelerating. Earlier I'm not using the term braking earlier because he is still not braking. We saw this style from him in Suzuka, and as for now Lando Norris is the only F1 driver which does it on a regular basis. So they go in, they enter the corner, a huge difference in pedal walk just on the apex. With Charles is a bit ahead for now, but he is already all his way on the throttle, while Lando Norris is still holding his brakes. Quite a long braking phase for Lando Norris. And then they're going off the corner. Charles had a tiny oversteer, but we see for now Charles is actually quite ahead of Lando Norris, all due to him opening his throttle earlier. And then we move on to turn 2, which is flat out basically, and then starts that sort of maggots and bacons section of the track. We see a huge difference in pedal work. Charles Leclerc started to apply his braking, of course just a little bit, but he was still applying it, all the way from the second corner of this twisty section, which is turn 4, and Lando Norris is still completely not using his brakes. He is actually not a fan of using brakes and uses them only if really necessary. Right here, once again, Charles Leclerc will use his 2-pedal technique. He presses the brakes, not even going halfway of the throttle, and we will see a completely different approach from Lando Norris, just going completely off the throttle. And here is the end of sector 1. The difference is 1/10 and a half. It is quite a huge difference considering that the first sector is pretty short. So let's synchronize shots once again, bring Norris closer to Charles Leclerc and move on, because the sweeping section continues, and here we see quite a huge difference in alliance, because we see Lando Norris being way closer to the end of the track than Charles Leclerc. And if we will move back just a little bit, if we try to draw the alliance, we will see Lando Norris opening the corner way more than Charles Leclerc does so. Leclerc will cover a smaller distance, but in exchange he will have to have a smaller speed on his line. We can see the speed difference in here. And Lando actually has a better angle on the next corner. We see him using the track way more than Charles Leclerc. This whole section I will actually do the advantage to Lando. I want to draw your attention to the way Ferrari engine works, because as for now the difference in speed is 10 km/h. The throttle inputs are basically the same, and just check how Ferrari engine will cover the whole difference here already. This same speed. Ferrari engine, small turbo, has a better acceleration in exchange for some top speed, but here is a fair equation. Now we enter the next corner. Surprisingly, we will see Lando Norris actually decelerating later than Charles Leclerc, and also he is already somewhere around here on Charles's camera. But as a result of this, we will see actually Lando pressing the brakes all the way through the corner even after the apex, while Charles is on the throttle even before the apex. And they will harvest the same results. Exiting the corner, we see a perfect exit from Charles Leclerc, using the track way more than Lando Norris, having the ability to accelerate way better out of the corner, and acceleration out of this corner is really important, because the cars have a huge straight after it. And now you can check just how heavily the cars bounce or porpoise, I should say, and for this heavy braking zone we will see Lando Norris braking way earlier than Charles Leclerc. Quite a significant difference, maybe at around 10 meters, and as a result Charles will face some oversteer going into the corner, the worst place to have an oversteer. He tries to catch it and as a result completely misses the apex, unlike Lando Norris. This fact will actually mess with Charles Leclerc. He is as wide on exit as possible and he definitely has lost some time in there. And we see Lando Norris in the end of sector 2 being 0.04 of a second faster than Charles Leclerc. So sector 2 goes for Lando Norris, we'll drag Charles forward and move to the sector 3. Sector 3 is actually very interesting technical sector. In the next corner, cars will have to brake all the way on the turning wheel. The drivers cannot afford misjudge the corner, because a slight misjudgment will result in a heavy change in racing line, which in turns will result in a heavy loss in overall lap time. And we see actually Lando Norris will brake later than Charles Leclerc. So Lando Norris was going all in on this lap, trying to get into the mix. As for now, lines are basically similar. Charles is a bit more towards the outside, but it is the only difference. And this interesting right-hander just floats into a heavy braking zone down here. We'll see drivers start braking once again. Lando Norris braking later than Charles Leclerc. Once again braking on a turning wheel, and then you have to add a bit more of a steering angle going into the corner. You try to avoid entering the corner earlier than necessary, because the exit out of here is pretty important. The corner itself is quite slow, so the traction out of the corner will be quite unstable, and I am pretty honored to see Charles Leclerc using all his throttle. But I am also honored to see Lando Norris actually bringing in more speed than Charles Leclerc. So once again a bit different approaches to taking the corner, and once again we saw Charles were a bit wider exiting the corner. Now quite an interesting 3 apexes but flat out corner, and we approach the penultimate turn. We see them both starting braking at exact same moment, but as for now Charles Leclerc is a bit ahead of Lando Norris, so this corner goes to Charles Leclerc in terms of braking later. And quite interestingly, we see Charles not going off the throttle throughout the whole turn. Yes, the turn is quite a high speed corner, but Lando Norris, despite braking earlier, actually brakes with lesser tension and manages to bring in more speed once again. So we see here Norris is actually a bit ahead, and just like in the first turn, he goes off the throttle before he applies brakes. So quite a late braking, especially for Lando Norris. The same thing on the apex. Leclerc is already on the throttle while Norris is still a bit on the brakes. And we see a huge oversteer from Lando Norris, which messes up his last corner. Luckily enough, the finish line is just here, but Leclerc still manages to outperform Lando Norris on the last sector, 2.5 hundredths of a second, not even the best sector for Charles Leclerc. We saw him being a bit conservative, maybe braking too much, bringing it not enough speed, but he was still able to catch the pole position, and overall his lap was pretty nice. We saw him being way more aggressive with exiting the corners than Lando Norris. We saw him applying throttle as early as possible, which is of course a part of his driving style and a part of him walking with his Ferrari. This is it, thank you very much for your view. Do not forget to leave a like, to subscribe to our channel to see more content like this. Also leave your comment if you have something to add or to discuss. See you soon.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement.